Welcome, everybody. Anine, thank you so much for being here with us today. We are very, 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 very excited to have this event with you all, and we're all grateful that you are here with us. My name is Misty Longman. I manage the ta-tawâw Student Center at the University of Regina. We are doing this event in the spirit of the Moose Hide Project, which launched their big initiative last week on May 10th. And we have some really great partners who helped us come up with these beautiful ideas to engage conversation with our community around Moose Hide Project. So we have Ursu, who's been a part of this with us. We have the Believe department, our violence, again, it's a really long department title. I apologize, you all. But Lynn Thera is our violence coordinator, prevention coordinator, and she's helped us with a lot of wonderful stuff. UR Pride has been a part of some of the conversations and events we've hosted throughout the last couple months as well too. So we're very grateful. FNUNIV is tabling with us too. So thank you all for being a part of this. I'd like to thank the men that are here to speak with us today. We are grateful for them. For those of you that are in the chat with us that aren't speakers and panelists, we ask that you keep your accounts muted. If you guys have any questions, you can throw them up into the chat and we'll send them off to the moderator throughout, and then they can get to those throughout the conversation if the space holds for it. So we appreciate that. One of our speakers today is a very wonderful man that's been a part of our community for a while, and we're very grateful for him. We asked him to be on the panel with us because he's an expert is what I said to him on the phone yesterday, dad and grandfather and great-grandfather, and it's Dennis Umiyasu. And Dennis Umiyasu is coming with us to talk about his experience as an Indigenous father, grandfather, and great-grandfather, but he also is going to start us off in a good way with a prayer, and we're really grateful for him for doing that. So I'm going to give the table to him. Thank you, everybody.
Hi. I greet each and every one of you. I like to first of all explain about the prayer in regards to something that that I hold most dear, and that's regarding family, my family, and you all know that the invocation, the prayer, but for me, it's a story to this God, Xemanto, or whatever you want to call this life-giving force. And when in the days of old, even to this day, people really humble themselves to that name, because God is everywhere. God is with us, and also they would humble themselves by not even mentioning the name, because as human beings, we all have faults, and so that's why they humbled themselves when it came time to tell their story. That's at that moment, coming from the heart, that is sincere. In this case, where we are right now with this little forum that we have, is that I usually burn incense or smudge or whatever you want to call it, to purify myself, to purify my aura, my whole being. And this the smoke that goes up in the air, it'll speak on our behalf. And so with that, I'm gonna start burning this buffalo sage, and from there, if you were to help me, even to help yourselves, your family, think about them. And I will tell my little story to God, just out of respect, and also to the man's spirit. The woman, they have their own spirit. She's the one that takes care of all female and children. With us, we have a spirit too. It's kind man spirit, Xenapia. and to help us choose the right words. So this way we can help ourselves to remind ourselves as well, maybe perhaps someone may benefit, from what we will be sharing in our experiences as keepers, as babysitters for the children that was brought to our lives. So with that, I'm going to speak in my my mother tongue, the language that identifies who I am as a Cree person, Plains Cree. Mamunohtawi ma musin ksemanto. Nanask muna noskis gawe mia. Kawanska kepte mia kanamba. Waskawyon bimatson yoka mahtawa. Nanasko maog egwenigoke kamam sita tauchi kawichi hakik. Mwe eatawe imchik. Nanasko monogo. Nanasko muan usamnis egakis wikisk sumsuan. Eugoma kaki bits namawinoge. Ktoasimsak asagoge. Ginanas kumonog no tawina ni chao agan midnan wa wis chao. Tutamage stamog ni tsktimaksek no akumagan. Wa wis chen kakaskitama chotana kamay pait ninan. Apumina kawawisaga pinetaksigamko. Puhtogamko migayatsk. Apumin ekainanto kawiksrangi. Apuminange ka miano kayatsk ka kismusta mo tawinan. Temagitaunan anohtsomuta. Miugistihtamasnan kiska umika vietnatama tipska. Exonis kaktimagi muan muaiwa tepiahina naskumuan. Nia takatunesman ai. Oh.
All right. Thank you so much, Dennis, for getting us started in the right way. I want to welcome you guys all here for our Indigenous Fatherhood discussion panel. I also want to thank the University of Regina, Ursu, and everybody got involved to organizing this and promoting this. This is definitely something that's close to all of our hearts, and it's a discussion that I think oftentimes doesn't have the space. There's not a space for that. This is new. So I'm Nick Crichton. I'm going to be your moderator for today. I'm originally from Waterhen Lake First Nation, which is about 6 hours north of Regina, where I'm from. And I'm currently the Director of Indigenous Engagement with the Saskatchewan Chamber of Commerce. So that's what I do for a living, but that's not necessarily my identity and who I am. But without going into too much further detail, I'm gonna pass it on to Dennis, give Dennis, Peter, and Jaden an opportunity to introduce themselves, talk a little bit about where they're from, and obviously they're the ones that we're gonna be highlighting today and having an opportunity to share in some discussion about what it means being an Indigenous dad and how we can move forward. So with that, I'll pass the mic over to Dennis, and you can introduce yourself.
Oh, wow. I was hoping to be the last one there. But yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. As I mentioned in my little story there, I thank ta-tawâw, for inviting me in this discussion here. And I myself, I have a good experience, in being a father, all kinds of feelings, being a dad, a grandfather, laughter, grief, you name it, all in balance, I guess you could say. And my name is ta-tawâw. That's which means crow belt. And I am originally from Musquetees, Alberta, what is now established as the province of Alberta. And I have been in this, I have been a guest in this Treaty 4 territory, say, for about at least 24 years. But I've been associated with this, the community of Payapot, where I am living right now, where my partner, my wife, is from. We've been together for about at least a good 42 years. So in other words, a lot of the people, the older guys around here, I kind of, I guess could safely say I grew up with. I'm the youngest of my family. You know, I used to have 5 brothers, but they're all gone now. So I have 4 sisters left. And of course, our parents have gone on. And also I'm a father of 3 guys, 3 men, 3 sons. I used to have 4, but 4 years ago, our son, one of my sons, have passed on. And I also have a daughter, and I have about 4 grandchildren and 2 great grandchildren. And my son, has 2 stepchildren. I guess you could say I got 6 grandchildren, and also I have adopted brothers. I have adopted sisters, and of course with my late son, my late brothers, and my sisters, they also have grandchildren, great grandchildren. In other words, I'm rich. I'm a rich guy. I'm a rich man, and I don't know what more I can say for myself, except I have a lot of interesting moments here in Treaty 4 territory, meeting a lot of people, and also, keeping me busy one way or another. So I guess that would be enough said for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Right on. I'll move on now to Peter. Do a quick introduction about who you are.
Sure. Thanks, Nick. My name is Peter Brass. I'm from Pepecasis First Nations, just outside of Regina. I have a 16-year-old son and a 19-year-old daughter that I was lucky enough to have with my wife, Jory. Yeah, that's we got 2 kids. They're super soft, and yeah, so I guess I've been a dad for 19 years now.
Awesome. Thank you, Peter. Jaden?
Hi, my name is Jaden Belgard now. I just recently changed my last name. It used to be K, but name's Jaden Belgard. Oh, that's a different ring to it now. I am a new dad to a almost 2-year-old. She's 22 months. I am from Coactou, Saskatchewan. Grew up around Fowl Hills though, so I know a lot of people down south. Lived mostly all over Saskatchewan, so my ability to talk to anyone is pretty good, I guess.
Awesome. All right, Jaden, thank you. And like I said at an intro, I started my relationship with my partner about 10 years ago, and then I instantly became a bonus dad to 3 children. So currently have 24-year-old, 18, a girl that just turned 15, and then 10 years after her last baby, my partner blessed me with a baby that came, a bio baby of my own. So we have a 4-year-old as well. So I had the opportunity to test it out, I guess, for a bit, being that bonus parent to 3 of our kids, which is excellent for me, because then I missed the diaper stage because Ari was 4, but now she's 15, and then I got into the diapers quite heavily, obviously, with the little one that came around. So my children they teach me more than I've been able to learn, and I heavily rely on, my partner was a parent before I was. I kind of jumped into a relationship and became that instant parent figure at 25, and I'm still learning, and that's the cool thing about it. But before we start getting into conversation here, I thought, why not start off with a dad joke? And I tried to think of some dad jokes that didn't have inappropriate endings, because most of my dad jokes kind of have it inappropriate, but and you don't have to laugh, because my kids don't laugh at me when I tell these jokes either. If you pity laugh, I appreciate it. All right, how do you here's the joke. How do you track Will Smith? Do you follow the Fresh Prince? I think I laughed more at that than anybody else. But anyways, with that, we'll dive right in. That I don't have a trademark on that joke, but you can keep it for yourself. You can have it. You can use it at your next party, and hopefully you get more laughs than I did. But we'll open this up, and just an open-ended question. This is informal discussion. Please note that we are going to be here till, I believe, 3:15, so we have about an hour to discuss what Indigenous fatherhood is. In the chat box, please put your questions in there. If we have time at the end, we're going to do our best to try and address everybody's questions, and we all have different experiences. I'm not going to share as much just because I'm going to be moderating, and I'm going to try and keep my mouth quiet. But ultimately, the cool thing about it is that all 3 of our panelists today are of, Dennis talked about being a Muslim or a grandfather. Peter is, a parent of 19 years with experience. And then we have Jaden, brand new. Remember, Peter and Dennis and myself know what it's like staying up those late nights trying to get your baby to sleep. And Jaden can definitely share his experience being a new dad. So we're definitely looking forward to it. The first question, I'll just leave it open-ended, and I'll start with you, Peter. What does fatherhood mean to you in the realm of being an Indigenous dad versus a non-Indigenous parent? How is that different, and kind of what does that mean to you?
I suppose I won't answer so generally. I'll answer myself being an Indigenous guy. What fatherhood means for me is helping to guide new life in, as they grow up. I mean, that's in the most general sense. For me personally, what it has meant for me as an Indigenous guy is a lot of self-work and looking at my own self and trying to be a healed person or a healing person for myself, so that any decisions that I make or guidance that I give to my kids, whether they want it or not, I'll offer my guidance, is coming from a place of healing and not from a place of reprimand or punishment. So I would say guidance and healing is what fatherhood means to me.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's great. And then and I could be wrong. You can correct me here, Peter, but it's talking about maybe breaking some of those cycles, right? Of changing your parenting style to maybe, something that you weren't necessarily potentially not used to. You know what I mean? And it's kind of forming that your own identity for your children. And I think, that's definitely good. And I love that you're leading with healing. I love that you're leading with, this is the philosophy I'm going to be using to guide me as a dad. And you've used that philosophy to parent for 19 years. And I know probably hasn't been easy. But yeah, definitely super important. Jaden, do you want to share kind of what what fatherhood means to you and what it's like? 22 months in, I'm sure you've experienced definitely some challenges, and I guess talk about how it's affected you or changed you.
It's a very good question. I don't ask myself those kind of questions that often, so this question is very new. But I was going along the lines of what Peter was saying, and I like the word that he used, healing. So coming down from that, I think what it means to me is that the cycles end. It stops at me. It's not necessarily breaking the cycle, but it ends. So to me, it's all in my mind is like, it's happened, but now it's ending with me, and my daughter's not gonna witness that, and she's gonna live a life that that I can provide to her the best of my ability. Being a brand new father, it's a whole different ballgame. From being a university student into having her in my last year of university, it just really changed my mind and my mindset around, I guess, in life in general. Because now I have a life partner now to share all my experiences with her, as well as my daughter. And they're both witnessing of what I can provide and what I can share with them. And it's not necessarily just dismissing and going to work, coming home. And what it means to me is that, break that intergenerational trauma. It ends with me. It's not breaking. It's not continuing. It's ending with me.
Oh, that's excellent, and that's something that you didn't want to repeat, right? We talk about those cycles repeating, and it's a common experience we have as Indigenous people. You know what I mean? The intergenerational trauma that we face based on our residential schools history, 60 Scoop, all of those things, and everyone is when you're First Nations and or Métis, your arms reach away from addictions or trauma or violence, right? And so we have those commonalities that kind of bring us together as dads, and ensuring that we don't continue those, that we are doing our best to ensure our children have a good life. They have that life that maybe we all were hoping for and trying to break. So thank you, Jaden. Dennis, I'll ask that same question to you. What does fatherhood mean to you, and what does it mean being an Indigenous dad versus a non-Indigenous dad?
First of all, it's it's a way of life. First, for me, because for me, I came from a different era. At a time when the horse and wagon. Furthest I can remember is when I was a baby. I was cute. No, just kidding. But during that time, being the youngest of the family, I had the privilege of going on horse and wagon to visit, different households. In those days, everybody spoke the language, the Cree language. So I had to communicate with my elders in the Cree language. So that is a big difference today, because that language is very descriptive, not like the English language that we've mastered so far. And but along the way, as I was growing up, you talked about these traumas and all that. When my family started discovering alcohol, it wasn't just our family. There was lots of families in the reserve. So we kind of grew up in that way too, in which along the way, I myself started experimenting to the point where something very traumatic happened. And then from all the, the freedom without any children, as I was, till about 22, 23 years old. I was, I guess you could say, all over the place. Just looking for fun. That's all it was. And then, when I got into this one incident, during that time that my guess you could say one of my girlfriends was going to have my child. So I was about to go. When I first met my baby, I fell in love with my baby. And there I made that promise that my children will never see me drink. So from there, I had to learn how to be a dad from there, which wasn't, at first, it wasn't, because I was used to my lifestyle. And then my partner wanted to see a marriage counselor. And I said, no, I don't want to spill my guts with anybody. The people I don't even know. But I didn't realize at that time I was a videographer. I used to videotape in the early 80s, 1981 or something like that, 82. I videotaped everything, band meetings, everything. One was a round dance, 50th anniversary of this couple that are friends of our family, friends of my late parents. I was given tobacco to go record, which I did. So all day, all night at the round dance, I videotaped the round dance, videotaping. Then at the end, I gave the masters to the one that tobaccoed me up, the daughter of the parents there, telling them that this is my anniversary gift. About 3-4 days after, I told my partner, my wife, that I'm ready for that marriage counselor. And she was happy for that. And so, and I told her about who they are, who I did name. So that day I went to go see at their home. I went to go tobacco them up because my wife, my partner, we made that decision to invite them to come to our home so that we will feed them, treat them with royalty, blankets under chairs and gifts, everything like that. We were going to invest on their good advice. And so when they came over that day, that's when after our meal, after he prayed for food, I put the food in a bush. We ate together. After we ate, we went to get our goods. My wife and daughter, they went to get the woman's goods, and us, the boys, we all carried our goods. And I told the father there, you have been together for a long time, quite a while, and you see us. We are young. We are a young family. We ask what worked. What advice would you give us to have a long relationship? And they were humbled, saying this is the first time they've been asked in this manner, for, good relationship, in the home fire, within the home fire. And so what he said was, us too, we were young when we were together. Us too, we experimented with alcohol. And us too, we raised children. But as we got older, we learned a lot from this child rearing. Our advice is for you, your family, is first of all, put the Siamanto in front, put God in front. To love yourself, to love others, to love your family, respect yourself, respect the family. Don't bring alcohol and drugs into your home, because it might, with that kind of spirit that you bring in, it'll either scratch or else it'll deaden the home fire. Also, do not raise your voice, because it shocks the spirit of the children there, and also shocks the spirit of that home fire. To talk in a good way, a soothing way, to communicate, but also to have at least a good laugh each day. Not to laugh at others, but to enjoy life together. And when you do that, it raises the spirit of the children. It gives them, how do you say, they feel safe. They feel safe. They feel loved. So that's what I mean. It's a difference between, the non-Indian and the Indian is the way of life. It's a spiritual reality of the Indian way. I hope that answers your question there.
Yes, it absolutely does, Dennis. Thank you so much. So there's some very wise words to share with anybody, regardless if you're a dad or not. And it's important. And I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's role modeling that behavior, because our kids are always watching. That's something I noticed, that they're always listening. And even though we don't think they're listening, they are definitely listening. So role modeling those good behaviors and those good teachings, and practicing it, and then putting it into practice. And that's where it comes from. I was thinking while you were talking a little bit about, the Indigenous kinship model, First Nations, that kinship model and what that looks like. For everybody else, that kinship model is defined as your immediate family, right? Your immediate children, immediate brothers and sisters. But in that, as First Nations people, our definition is a lot broader than that. And I thought about it when you were speaking Cree, and I can't speak Cree fluently, so forgive me, but when you were discussing being a dad and a grandfather, and I was thinking about some people in my life that maybe didn't have their dads around to guide them, didn't have those situations where they were privileged to have a dad to kind of guide them in a good path. The Cree word for dad, or one of them, is ta-tawâw, and the Cree word for uncle is ta-tawâw. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But if you translate that, what that actually means isn't necessarily your uncle, but your little dad. And the same thing for mom is ta-tawâw, and then your auntie is your ta-tawâw, right? And so that doesn't necessarily translate to auntie, but it's your little mom. So if anything were to happen to your mom or dad, then it would be up to your little dad or your little mom to then raise your child. And that idea of that larger kinship model, and you were talking about family and raising and taking the time to share, go to marriage counseling and share how you're feeling. That's not something, even in my generation, I'm 35, we didn't talk about our feelings. We didn't discuss what it meant to be a parent, or we were almost discouraged to discuss our feelings. We were supposed to hold all of those emotions in. And we didn't have anybody else role modeling that kind of behavior. So that kind of leads me into the next question, and I'll pass it on to Jaden here. Who are your role models as a father? And I know that you're a new dad, and you said you haven't really had a chance too much to reflect on those kinds of questions. But if you're looking at role models, what are some of your role models when it comes to being a dad, Jaden?
I would say it would have to go to my dad. Well, I take him as my real dad, but he's the one that kind of took care of me and took me as his own when I was 5 years old. But learning from him, he's been my main role model, both what to do and what not to do. And seeing that and learning from that, and as well as learning from my grandfather, that showed me how to be a genuine human being, along with my uncle too as well. And I gotta admit too, I'm pretty humbled by that, because not everyone has those family ties. So I very cherish those men in my life, because they show me a lot, and as well as my friends. I have a lot of friends, and my closest friends are dads themselves, and seeing how they are and what they're doing, it's like it does have a play on how I am as a father, but at the same time, I'm independent. I have my own identity of what I want to do. So mainly it's my dad and my grandfather and my uncles. So those are my role models. And I have to share a little story. I remember telling Peter Brass this, that I was having a baby. And then this is my main memory that I always think about when I think of Peter Brass. And I remember I met him at independent grocery store. And I was during when COVID hit, and we're kind of having our social distancing there. But I remember him telling me to really cherish that baby smell when they're first into this world, and they just have a unique smell, and I really cherished that fresh baby smell ever since then. And I do miss it. Like, I do think about that smell. It has a unique smell to it, but this she doesn't smell like a fresh baby anymore, but she's entering toddler. But that's Peter Brass is just an example of a friend that's been a role model to me.
That's excellent. Yeah, no, that, and as parents, we all know that smell. We all know that fresh baby smell, and I'm sure Peter can think back, and it'll bring him nostalgia. And maybe he has nieces and nephews that he's picked up, and it probably triggered a memory. And so the fact that he shared that with you, Jaden, that's excellent. That's all. And sometimes it's just a tidbit, enough that maybe Peter Brass never thought of, you know what I mean, that interaction, but it clearly it stuck with you. And so yeah, that's definitely a cool reminder for sure. Peter, we'll go to you, and then Dennis, in terms of your role models when it comes to being a dad and the experiences that you're having as a dad.
Sure. I'd like to just say first to Jade and to everyone else, that has a little baby, is the smell thing just grows. So now they just get more annoyed when I try to take a whiff of them, as my 16-year-old. But I mean, I'll smell a baby if I'm allowed to. I'm addicted. As far as role models go, I would have to point to also my father. as a default, I mean, he was there, and I love him, and he loves me, and he told me as much, and he gave me like little ways to like that we used to play, and like little games, stuff like that. But when I think about myself as a dad, I think of myself as a person, and so I can't discount the equal impact that my mom had on me as a person. And then, of course, later in life, you know, my siblings, we all kind of shaped each other when we weren't, you know, under our parents' purview. We were together, you know, growing as people. And then, of course, Jory, you know, my wife Jory, seeing another person go through the same changes as I was becoming a parent, and you know, perhaps we didn't change at the same rate or in the same direction, but we were both going in a positive direction. So to be able to watch someone else as close as I was able to, you know, grow in that way with someone. So I would definitely, as far as role models, I would, it's hard for me not to say everyone that I've ever hung out with or talked with, or because I'm growing as a person, and my personhood is what's fathering my kids. So yeah, there's just you know, I can take all of the positives from everybody I've met, but you know, watching my kids grow up, there's something about that really humanizes everybody to me, because I realize that my kids are going to grow up and be adults. I can see myself in my kids, so I can picture myself as a child, and that allows me, or enables me, to see everybody else as at one point a little child. So in that way, I'm constantly looking at everybody and learning from everybody and trying to become a better person for myself, for my kids, for my family, and for everybody. So I'm pretty much open to be you know, yeah. My role models are everybody. I just love everybody.
That's excellent, and it's very you have enough self-awareness, Peter, you know what I mean, to identify that it's not just one individual or multiple or just immediate family, but it's also, credit goes to your partner Jory, as you talked about, and people you see, you know, whether it be your friends, your family, maybe even people on TV, right? I mean, you never know. A lot of us are kind of continuing to learn what that looks like, and I think it'll be a continuing growing process as we, you know, are now responsible for these little ones. They're going to be growing up, and as they get older, right now you're in the stage, Peter, where at 19 and I believe you said 16, I can't remember, things are changing. They're entering adulthood, and you try to relate to your own experience being that 19-year-old, being that 16-year-old, and what the world looks like to them through their eyes versus what it looked like to you growing up. So yeah, very, very good advice in that sense. Dennis, I know you mentioned a little bit about, you know, you talked about your different partners and what it meant to become a dad, and that, you know, your children were never going to see you, you know, touch the bottle. Who are some of your role models to becoming a parent and being a dad?
Well, like the one before me that was talking, it's got a lot of role models. Same with me, you know. I in my years of being acquainted with you know, different friends and family, I've noticed a lot of qualities that they've had, you know, some of them are all in one, you know. In other words, the man's man, you know, that type of thing, you know. And but I cannot compare myself, you know, with them, you know, because it is to them, you know. but but within myself, it would be my late dad, because he never abandoned us, you know, which is a good thing, you know, very honorable, you know. And the thing about it is that because I can't remember him holding me, you know, until I had this one dream. And in that dream, I was getting ready to do a circle with some people, and there was two other people sitting beside me. We were waiting, and in walked my late dad, and so we locked eyes, you know, I guess you could say, and then immediately I went to see him, and then he hugged me, and that meant a lot to me. And then we both walked away. And one of my, I mentioned earlier, my son who had passed away 4 years ago. He had communicated with my daughter-in-law, and my daughter-in-law asked him if he was hungry, and he said, "No, I'm good. My parents feed me all the time. I'm good." "Well, what do you want?" And then, so he told my daughter-in-law, to tell my parents that I am with my grandparents right now, and that my Muslim told me to tell my dad, which is me, that he's proud of me, that I stopped the cycle, and that he's always with me. Now, aside from my late dad, during my time of soul searching, I happened to, I always heard about him. I happened to go to a ceremony in which my late uncle was officiating. I called him my late uncle because he had culturally adopted my late mom. So with my late uncle from that ceremony, he shared his experiences and his good words to me as part of my spiritual growth. So I would take him as also a role model, because he took that time to guide me. And like I said, you know, there's all numerous guys, friends and family out there who all have good qualities, good hunters, good farmers, good cowboys, good, all that good stuff, you know, but that's them. And this is me. Hi.
Thank you, Dennis. Those are, like, it's important to share some of those things. And I think there's a commonality here, is that we do take advice from others, and we'll always have the opportunity. We're fortunate to have that opportunity, to have those friends, families, uncles, people that we may have taken on as our adoptive dads or whatever that case may be. And they're all going to teach us a little bit, but ultimately as dads, we want to be able to create our own impact and do something different. I know that growing up myself, it was I didn't share, but my dad is actually probably the whitest man you'll ever meet. And he actually moved to the reserve, and my mom's this little Cree lady. And what I learned from him, and what I take from my mom, because my mom basically keeps him in check, but she's quieter, but she definitely keeps him in check, is that the idea of working is so important. And he didn't necessarily sit me down and say, you got to work hard and do all of these kinds of things, or maybe he has, but it was role modeling that behavior. He wasn't a man of too many words in terms of, he isn't a man of too many words when it comes to that fatherly advice, but it was just literally just watching what he did, watching the sacrifices he made, and understood that, you know, when I became old enough at 15 to start working, that's immediately what I wanted to do. And a part of it selfishly at 15 wasn't this altruistic, I'm going to work hard. It was more about, I needed money to hang out with my friends. And so I knew that if I had a job, that's going to get me a little bit of extra money. And that's some of the things that I try to take from my dad. And then even the having an identity issue growing up, you know, being, you know, deciding there's times that I felt that I was maybe too white for my brown friends and family. And then sometimes there was times that I was too brown for my white friends and family. So not knowing where I fit in sometimes was a big part of it. And it wasn't until I got older and I actually came to university where culture and identity weren't necessarily a big part of my life. I grew up playing hockey, I grew up playing soccer, all of those, and I turned to sports. But it was the late Glenn Anaquat Gakiatit that really helped reconnect me with my identity and made me proud to be who I was, walk tall and not be afraid to say that I was Indigenous and this is what it is and this is what it means to me. But it took time because I related being Indigenous to something negative, because I grew up watching my uncles and my aunties and violence and seeing that and hearing people say negative stereotypes and then starting to believe, well, is that what I hear? You know, people joke about it, but it's also what I see. And so that leads me into the next discussion point, and we're going to kind of switch gears here. But maybe we'll go to Peter first and ask, you know, as you know, you can't take off your brown skin. You know what I mean? You walk into businesses, stores, all of those kinds of things. How has your behavior changed? Maybe if you faced racism and or discrimination out in public versus what it's like being a dad, and how has that changed, and how do you react when that experience happens? Peter?
I suppose in that respect, I take a more like educational approach to that. We have both spoken to our children about you know, the missing, you know, murdered women, and you know, we have you know, racist violence in Saskatchewan, Canada, that our kids are aware of. But beyond that, it's more of an instilling a confidence and not an indifference, but not live life with that as a guide. I spoke. I don't know if anyone watched that video that I did, the short doc, but I spoke with a fellow named Teddy Buys, and in it he summed it up with talking to his kids and saying that's just the way it is. We live in a racist society, to whatever degree you want to call it that. It's a racist society, and I don't want that to guide my children's decisions in their lives, and to confront it when it happens, to see it for what it is, and what it is a fault or a fear on the part of the racist. It's not their fault. It's not their fault they're being followed in a store. You know, it's not their fault that, you know, assaults are happening. It's not their fault. And I think that is, I think that's the way to go about it. It's not I don't want to prep them. I don't want to prep them to be guarded and to be closed to experience. If that's an experience that they're going to have, I want them to be able to handle that experience, learn from it, grow from it, and move on, and not take anything on from it, if that makes sense. So yeah, I don't focus a lot of my parenting on that aspect other than just knowing that it exists.
Yeah, I think that's I think that's important, and I think sometimes we, defining what your how you're going to place these values on your children, because you're absolutely right. You don't want to put too much of an emphasis on it to have them being afraid to be able to leave their home or whatever the case may be. But also and I think you're talking about just being aware that it's there, and then how to deal with it when it starts to come. And I think that's kind of the best we all can do. So thank you, Peter. Jaden, yeah, how would you deal with those kinds of situations, or how have you dealt with them in the past, being a new dad?
Well, for me personally, it was more or less like I guess it was more naive. It wasn't really shown of how to deal with it. Well, I guess I was, but it was more a reactive kind of approach to dealing with racism or just pure judgment. Learning from that though, and having my daughter now, is that even talking with Morgan, and we have good conversations about these kind of things, and we are going to not we're not trying, we're going to create a space for our daughter to be open and communicate with that if something like that happens, and we're going to be fully 100% in making her aware that this has happened and this is what happens, and this is this is the world that we live in. And just like what I kind of like what how that was put, is that that's the way it is, but at the same time she's going to know what it is. She's not gonna have fear instilled into her to fear it or to react to it. She's going to be aware of it, and she's going to learn how to go through that with confidence and keep that positivity up, so that she can, that's the only way, is that keep being positive no matter how hard or how tough it is that it's kind of a very experience. And my words are getting jumbled, but like the main idea is to teach her to communicate, and to especially with us, we don't want to have a space where she like, I don't know, this happened, I don't know if I should tell my dad will get angry, or things like that. Is that I'm not going to be reactive, as something my dad would have done for me. Like if it happened to me, he would react for me, and you'll protect us that way. But times have changed, and like I said, that trauma ends with me, and we're gonna have a space that's gonna be full of love and care, and she's gonna be openly communicative about things like that happening. And that's just the way our world is set up, and she's gonna continue to blossom in whatever she does in our world.
Yeah, no, and that's excellent. You're absolutely correct, Jaden. Being able to instill those values and ensuring that, understanding exactly what Peter had said, and referencing that video. I don't know if we have an opportunity to share it with people. I'm just speaking out of turn here, Peter, but I think it's an excellent little documentary to share, because again, there was, you were discussing, there was 4 dads there talking about all of their own experiences and how it changed them in a very real way. And I think we all kind of have this protective energy that we have over our children, and we want to try and guide them in a good way. So with that, I'll move on to you, Dennis, just discussing, how you experienced racism and how you being able to deal with it, but sharing that not only with your own children, but with your grandchildren as well, if those things have come up. Dennis?
Thank you. As you as you get a little older, life becomes more meaningful, and there you start acknowledging, what our ancestors have left for us, which is our reality, which is spiritual, from another dimension, of a higher conscience. So, for one thing, I do not look for racism. If you look for it, you'll find it. And then, but if I did feel something, then I have a choice of responding in a negative manner, else sending them good vibes, so those vibes will come back, bounce back. Because after all, they are only human beings. And in our world, we start searching for other ways of thinking, in which it is perhaps for me, especially when our late son had passed away, then we started researching. Of course, my partner, my wife, has been into meditation for many years. So I got into it, and there started believing in reincarnation. All the things that, all the people that have happened in the past are here in this life. But in between both lives, there is that higher conscience in between, getting ready for this life, next life. And there you choose your parents. No matter if it's a good choice or a bad choice, they are your parents. You choose how you're going to pass away or decease, or all kinds of nice words, for death, how you're going to die. You choose whether it's going to be peaceful or violent. And also, you already know your purpose in life. We know that. But once we're born with all the angels with us, once we're born, we totally forget about everything, because we have to experience life and all the feelings that come along with it. We have to exercise them. And those people that have done us wrong in this life, it happened on a past life. We met them before. But this time, how are you going to deal with it? Because our purpose is to, that energy that we came in with, that fire that we came in with, that soul, we want it to grow for the next life, on and on. So like I said, I don't look for that negative, but sadly, in all the universe, throughout the universe, all kinds of planets out there, or stars, or whatever you want to call them. So huge, this universe. And there we are in there, at Earth, amongst all those stars and planets. Maybe there's just in imagining that there's life out there too. Life where they're very, you know, they're so advanced. Maybe there's another life where there's nothing but peace. Everybody's equal. Or maybe there's a place where, you know, the women are controlled, you know, not like the men are in control, the women are in control. And maybe there's another life, in another place where they're still behind, the caveman people. And here we are, you know, a lot of hate in this world. And all you have to do is look at the news and everything like that. Even our own people, are hurting our own people. You know, even parents sticking up for their kids, and everything like that. So yeah, you know, I always, you know, speak for my children, my grandchildren, you know, protect them in that way. That's all I can do. Because each and every one of us, you know, no matter how white you look, as long as you have that Indian blood, you have it. That spirituality is there with you. You know, in other words, the grandfathers, the grandmothers, the spiritual grandfathers and spiritual grandmothers are always here with us, like they have done so from way back. Oh, I'm just rambling. But anyway, I hope that answers that question there.
Yes, it does. Thank you, Dennis. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but those situations are going to happen, you know, to sum that stuff up. And you're absolutely right. If you go looking for racism, you will definitely find it. And we have to decide how we're going to handle that situation. We have a choice to make. How much energy are we going to put into that? How much energy are we going to put into that, and how it's going to bother you? Or are you going to allow that to shape the decisions you make? But also putting it in perspective that this moment is going to happen, but if I put all of my eggs in that basket, or I put all my energy towards that wrongdoing or that discrimination or that pain that I'm feeling, then that might mold and change our decisions. But understanding in perspective, you know, there's more to it than just that one lone thing, and you don't have control of that. You don't have control of what somebody else is going to say or think. And then we just have to choose how we're going to interact with that in a positive space. I know that for myself, I would have reacted differently. I grew up in a violent home. Before I became a parent or a bonus parent, I definitely would have reacted differently. I was so ready at 18, 19, 20 to put my fists up and be like, okay, this is how I handle my problems. And then you get older and you have children, and you realize, and you're like, it was silliness to decide that that's how I'm going to solve my problems, because you have other people that you're responsible for now. You have other people. I can't go out and get into a fist fight and get hurt or potentially, you know, put in a hospital, because I have responsibilities, right? And so I think it's important that we understand that. And Peter mentioned something about calling it out when we see it, but ensuring that it doesn't become something that drives our identity or what we're trying to pass on. I realize now it's quite close to wrapping up. Before, you know what, maybe I'm going to take this opportunity to give everybody an opportunity to, maybe if you have a tidbit of advice as a parent, maybe it's just 15 seconds or 30 seconds on what advice would you give somebody that is becoming a dad or a new parent. And I'll give it back to Jaden. You're a fresh, you know, what's that little tidbit or piece of advice that you would pass on to a new dad? or to any dad?
To any dad, I would the biggest factor that I've learned through becoming a dad to an almost 2-year-old now is that it's okay to I don't live a life that's very masculine orientated anymore. I come home, work stays at work. I don't bring it home. Time to myself, like to play a video game or to go to the gym or do anything athletic. It's in the morning before anyone is up, because that time is for me. I don't do it in the evening when when my daughter's up or if my partner wants to spend time with me. That time is for them. So it's very important to be very inclusive and very be in there with your children, be involved, because that is something that I didn't really have growing up. So being very involved in your kids' life and your partner's life is very big point in living a happy life. And that means changing your baby's diaper all the time, or giving her a bath, giving them a bath, or going letting your inner kid come out. It's okay to be silly. It's okay to make a Kermit the Frog voice, or to read them books, or to be silly, or to even to wrestle on the floor. It's fine. You can, don't be embarrassed, especially when people are around, or your in-laws or your family are around. They don't see that side to you. It's okay to be very silly and to let your inner kid out, because I wish I had that. And me doing that to my daughter, I could see it on her face whenever I come home from work. She's right at the door, coming with her hands behind, ready, swinging her arms up, just kind of like, what are we gonna do, dad, kind of thing. It's good to see that. And be very involved, um, be very strategic in how you have time for your mental health as a dad. Set a time that's only for you and not in your family's time, because that will help you in living a happy life for the rest of your life. Because you could be giving your daughter or your kids all the time but not your partner. There's a balance that you must make. There's sacrifices that you must make. And to me, then maybe that's 7 hours of sleep a night, and that's okay. I can, if I get no more than 8 hours, I'm groggy for the rest of the day. So 7 hours is perfect for me. Be willing to make sacrifices is the biggest factor.
Awesome. Thank you, Jaden. Very, very, very good advice. And being silly is important. They're only kids for a small period of time, and that silliness may fade. So the fact that you're not shy to be silly in front of your kids is great. Thank you, Jaden. And Peter, some advice?
I'll share some advice that I'm just now learning. I kind of had an inkling a while ago, but I would say your personal life, your dreams, your whatever you're doing, the day before you find out you're going to have a kid, that shouldn't stop. You should take your kids on the adventure that your life is. They should see you doing what you want to do, or try to do what you want to do. You might not end up doing what your ideal goal is, but you'll end up somewhere along the way. And I think that is, it's hard to teach someone something that you don't know. And so raising our kids, we said you could do whatever you want, yet I wasn't doing whatever I wanted, in terms of like careers and stuff like that. And so I would say, don't drop everything when you have a kid. Have a kid and either go to the school you want to go to, or find an alternative way to learn what you wanted to learn. But don't just go work in the mines because you have a kid all of a sudden, unless you want to work in the mines. But you know what I mean? Like, don't sacrifice your dreams to raise a kid that you won't be able to show them how to follow their dreams. So I would, that's my advice.
That's great. And sometimes we forget that, right? We're like, oh, I have a kid, my life has to stop. Doesn't mean that you're not dedicated or that you're a poor parent, but you're role modeling. Just we talked about that same theme, that they can follow their dreams and they can come along with you now you just have more supports. So that's excellent. Dennis, last little tidbit of advice going forward to any dads.
Yeah, I heard this from someplace else. There was just one woman. She was waiting for her husband, and he's been, late. I don't know how many nights, but boy, she was just mad, just pissed off, not knowing what's happening and all that, but he's coming in late. So once she pulled into the place, to their home, she ran into the bedroom, and there, by his side on a dresser, she wrote a little note for him. And what she wrote was, I'm leaving. I can't take this no more. I've had enough. That was it. Then she hid under the bed, just waiting to see what his reaction will be when he reads her note. And so she heard him come in, going into the kitchen, fridge, and then he walked towards the bedroom. And so he sat down on a bed there, and he was reading that note. So he wrote a note too. He wrote it on there, on a piece of paper. Then he picked up the phone, and he told this. What he said was, she's gone. Yeah, she left a note here. She left. That's okay, I had enough of her. Always mad, I'll go over there, and I'll be over there. So he get ready for me. Put on that sexy nightie, and also we'll do all the naughty stuff that we like to do. So I'll be there in a few minutes, and I love you. So he hung up the phone, and all during that time, she was just shocked what she heard. So she heard him walk out the door and drove away, and she came crawling out of the bed. She was just crying and all that. Just couldn't believe it. And then she seen that note that he left behind. On that note, it said, I seen your feet. We're out of breath. I'll be back in 10 minutes. He said. So my advice is trust. The couple to trust each other. And when you do that, it creates a good feeling, a good spirit within the home. That's all I can say on that there.
Perfect. I think that's a beautiful place to stop. Thank you for sharing that story. I also want to thank Peter, Jaden, Dennis for taking the time to be vulnerable in a space, in a public space that maybe we haven't had that opportunity to be vulnerable as dads. And I think that hopefully that gives maybe one or two people a little bit of that courage to not be afraid to be vulnerable and share those things, and share what our feelings are, because our kids need to see that, and they're watching us even as babies. They imitate us, they see us, and they copy our behavior. So with that, I want to thank you guys all for participating. thank you guys all for signing up for this. I believe it's the first time this event has been on. I'm not 100% sure. And I appreciate you as dads sharing some of your thoughts, some of your wisdom, and some of your experience with myself and with the guest here today. So with that, thank you very much. I will now pass it on to Misty Longman from George Gordon First Nation, and she'll wrap it up. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. His favorite thing is Misty's a Gordon's girl, so I should have time to stay along and took him to bring it up. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for being here. Miigwech, you guys made my heart feel good. I know everybody else in this room with us feels good too. And again, the vulnerability, you know, I think we could have even touched on like what it means to be vulnerable as Indigenous men and fathers. And you guys gave us that gift, and we're grateful that we had a space for you to be vulnerable with us. And so thank you all so much for doing that for us today. I hope everyone enjoyed the presentation. I want to thank you too, Dennis, for, you know, bringing us back in and getting me to pause and slow down. I came rushing in before this started. I had a meeting with someone and I plopped down and got ready to barrel through. And Dennis was very kind to pause us, slow us down, and make sure that we did these things in a good way. So thank you for that reminder. And thank you for being fatherly to us in that way as well too. I really, really do appreciate that. So thank you, gentlemen, for being here, taking time with us. We really appreciate it. We appreciate everyone who stayed along with us as well. You guys, please have a very wonderful time, and thank you.
Thank you. See you.
Take care.